This is APYouthNet.
In this show, we will explore what new opportunities now exist for the young people of Myanmar, how they can attain them, and also how we can ensure that they are sustainable. Joining me today are Steve Marshall of the ILO and Sandar Soe of the Federation of Trade Unions of Burma. Thank you both very much for being with us today from Yangon. Steve, I'd like to start the show with you. In your view, what can be done to complement economic growth and job creation in a harmonious way in Myanmar?
Well, a whole host of things. The first thing we need to do is actually find out what is the labour market, what is its size, what is its shape, who is there, who is not there, who's looking for what. There is no statistics. Nobody has got any feel for what is the labour market. So one of our first priorities is actually to do a proper labour force survey so that we can get a good picture. There are immediate issues and there are medium-term and there are long-term issues. What we really must look at is the critical immediate needs, and I would suggest they are largely in relation to the rural areas and the ethnic areas in terms of youth and the building of societies and the maintenance of livelihoods. But we've got to, in parallel, look at a longer term strategy which will actually be creating decent jobs, will be using foreign direct investment to not only be profitable business but to build a society. And then in the long term we've got to be looking very much at the education system and ensuring that the young people of Myanmar, in fact when they leave school, have got the necessary tools to be able to take advantage of a vibrant labour market. They do not have that opportunity at the present time.
Steve, I'd like to come back to your point on the rural-urban divide. I think the figures are roughly 70% of young people living in rural areas. How do we ensure that they also participate to the new opportunities of this new Myanmar? How do you do that in terms of access to skills training, to them obtaining those opportunities as well?
Yeah, it's not going to be easy. I think we have to firstly come to grips with the fact that you're not going to be having industrial jobs everywhere in the country for these young people to move to. So what we've got to be concentrating on, I believe, is actually added value agricultural activity, right, which is critically important, but also the potential issue of young people having to internally migrate for work. And that raises a whole other host of issues that we need to be addressing in terms of the social structures of the country.
Sandar, what is your message to those young people who live in Japan, the United States, overseas countries? What is your message? Are you inviting them to come back to Myanmar?
It depends on job creation in Myanmar. Now EU and US, they are lifting sanctions against Burma. So at this time, we might have more opportunities, job opportunities. At this time, they can come back and they can work in Myanmar. But if they do not have job opportunities in Myanmar with high quality or jobs, they will not come back. So I don't want to ask for them to come back in Myanmar before we achieve foreign direct investment. In Myanmar, there are around 30 million labor force. Around 65% is the agricultural sector. So government, if US and EU they will lift a sanction. The government they should create more jobs for young people, and they should have immediate and targeted action for young people.
We have figures that estimate that there is an estimated 450,000 internally displaced people within Myanmar.
Can I
Please.
give you a quick comment on that? Because we need to differentiate between internal migration or internally displaced persons as a result of civil unrest in terms of armed conflict, as opposed to internal migration in respect of employment. And I think you'll find that probably the number that you have got encompasses people who are internally displaced because of civil unrest and because of an absence of peace in some areas of the country. They are absolutely critical because, in fact, until we can resolve these issues of social unrest And until we can get sustainable peace agreements, which involves the creation of work and sustainable livelihoods for the people in those areas, it is not much point in actually talking about industrial development, because your society actually needs to be built. So one of our main priorities, frankly, will be on trying to establish a livelihood for young people, particularly young people, in the ethnic areas that have been or are still being impacted by armed conflict, where there is no employment for these young people in those environments at the present time. So we've got to be looking at small and micro business development activities for them, added value agricultural activities, and potentially investment into their areas in areas such as rubber and other activities that will create sustainable work for them without creating social unrest on issues of land and things of that nature. There are some fundamentals, issues of education, for example. It's all very well to say to create jobs, but if in fact the job seekers are not yet in the position where they have got their basic abilities to move into the workplace, that is a real problem. The issue of vocational skills is another serious issue. And also the job seekers, trying to match them with the people with potential job opportunities, the creation of a proper labour market and labour exchanges, etc. So there is some really fundamental work that has to be done before we can get into too much sophisticated areas of activity, to be frank.
So then, what can be done so that young people are aware of their rights and rights at work, I mean?
I think there's a whole range of different issues in terms of the development of the country. It's not simply the issue of rights at work, it is actually the rights to work is one of the critical issues. And within Myanmar, particularly in respect of youth, there are issues of dramatic underemployment, there are issues of unemployment, and there are issues of the rights of people in the workplace. To be frank with you, probably the underemployment and unemployment issues are priorities. I'm not saying the rights of work is not important, of course they are. What we have to ensure of is that youth are included within the new rights that are coming into the labour market, and there is every indication that that is in fact going to be the case, that they will be encompassed with all of the new rights of workers in the workplace.
Sandar.
Steve, he described that we should have, for young people in Myanmar, we should have rights to work, and for everybody. So I would like to mention that we should have equal rights to work, not only for young people in cities, but also in remote areas, rural areas, in ethnic states, and ethnic states.
Well, thank you very much, Steve. Thank you also to Sandar, and thanking you for joining us today. Please join us again next time, and until then, log on the APYouthNet at apyouthnet.ilo.org for the latest on youth employment in Asia and the Pacific. From the ILO Regional Office for Asia Pacific, I'm Matthew Koniak. Thank you and goodbye.
This has been an APYouthNet production.